Right, my name is Crystal Sheldon. I'm the director for Java and Education at Oracle, and this session is on post-AP projects. So congratulations to your students for taking the AP exam. Hopefully they're giving you good reports about how they feel, uh, and that they all get really great scores come July when those scores get released. But for some of you, you might have 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Some of you might have a month and a half. When I taught in New York State, I had until almost the end of June with students after the AP exam. And so this is often a topic of conversation. What do we do with these students when we have so much time with them? So I'm hoping that you'll find one of these projects to be fun and enjoyable. I'm going to share two today with you all. They are all freely available, and we're going to kind of walk through them so you can see what they're all about. I don't teach in a classroom anymore, so I've tested them with a local teacher that was kind enough to help me test them out. Lisa Phillips is fantastic. If you know her from Brookwood High School here in Georgia, she is fantastic. She's an AP reader, and she piloted these for me, one of them, and it went really well, and we've made some edits. But if you choose to use them, please feel free to reach out if you have any suggestions or things that didn't really make sense, because they've really been piloted one time. So kind of bear that in mind. All right, I am going to attempt to live demo some of this stuff for you. Hopefully that will go well. As also, this will probably be a little longer than some of these are, just from the standpoint of going through and working through some of the different um, code and the demo. So, all right, let's get started here. So the first project that I want to introduce you to, it's called a rewards app. I don't know about you, but there's all these different restaurants and stores and whatever. They all have a different rewards app. And I thought this is something that maybe kids would be aware of, and we could maybe emulate a rewards app. So this one is called Everything in a Sandwich Rewards app. And the reason it's called Everything in a Sandwich is because when my son was younger, everything went between two pieces of bread. Meatloaf, lasagna, everything went between two pieces of bread. And we said, you should create a restaurant called Everything in a Sandwich. So this is a little homage to him. Essentially, this is not a well-written app by any stretch. It was written in Java 8, and the owners of this restaurant are looking for your students to do an upgrade and take it from Java 8 up into its current version of Java. And there's some prompts along the way that help them to do that. They can also add new features to the app. You will see as we go through, like, you can start brainstorming all sorts of different things that students can do to enhance this app. There is a text-based version of it that I suggest you start off with first. I'm going to show you some of that. And then there's this GUI-based, which helps expose them to some Java FX and just really kind of makes it look a little more like what they're seeing when they look at apps on their phone and things like that. So it looks a little bit more like an actual app versus a text-based program. So there's a series of missions that are suggested, but that's the great thing about this program is your students and you can take it and run with it in any direction you want to run with it. So it's very bare bones for that reason, but it gives them a place to start. It gives them some starter code. And I think some of the things that Lisa's students really came away with was this wrestling with program code that was written by somebody else, having to really look at the code that was given and really understand that before they make changes, because they start making changes, as students often do, and then they realize, oh, I broke something else along the way. So those are really valuable lessons that we don't often have authentic experiences for students to really learn about how important it is to read and understand the code, how change in one area can have a cascading effect in other areas of the code. Those debugging skills really start to kind of shine through here. It also gives them a chance to learn some new concepts in Java as well. Okay, so some of the things that they will learn is how to create records. Records is a new concept. I have some tutorials that are on the learn.java page. So if you need to become familiar with records or you need your students to become familiar with records prior to doing this project, that's a good resource for them. Switch statements with lambda notation. So that's another area that they can get into. Formatting output using some text blocks. So that's new information. And then using text files for input and output is also included in this app. And then, like I said, we have like a part 2 where they're going to incorporate JavaFX and the scene builder. I suggest using IntelliJ. I've posted some information about how to use IntelliJ for this project that would be helpful. IntelliJ has a really great scene builder built in, which just makes it so much easier to design an app like what you see on the screen without having to also learn FXML, which is what students would have to learn if they were going to just kind of go from the ground up with it. Okay, the current app basically creates customer profiles with the following information: the customer contact information, which contains their first name, their last name, email address, and mailing address. And then a unique customer ID number that is assigned to them when they become a member. The date in which the customer has joined, and we're going to use the local date class to do that. So that's another new piece of information for students to learn. And then the current app has rewards that apply to all the customers that use the app, and they contain the name of the offer, the amount of discount received, and an expiration date for the offer. Okay, there are, like I said, 2 parts. There's a text-based part that has a series of 5 missions with the possibility of further expansion. And then I would suggest doing that part first and then move into the Java FX app portion. And that has a series of 3 missions. Again, possibilities are numerous to expand on this, depending on the amount of time you have. Some of you might have 2 weeks, some of you might have 10 weeks of school left. All the starter code and directions are freely available. It can be found, and I'm going to show you this at learn.java/learning/minilabs. And then there's like upgrading software and JavaFX is the path to get to this. But if you just go to the Minilabs page, which I'm going to show you in just a second, it has a list of different mini labs that students can do. Okay, so let's switch over to demo time. Hopefully. So here is the learn.java/learning/minilabs page. So if you go to learn.java and you go to the Learner's Corner and you go to apply, there's a whole bunch of mini labs here. So maybe you don't like the 2 that I'm going to demo today. There are 3 other ones on here as well. So there's one that kind of steps students through the use of if statements, ternary conditional operators, switch statements, switch expressions, interfaces, and interfaces with Lambda. There is a meteorite landing, which is very much a grab some real data, uses some file input output, read the data in, create some records, create some charts and graphs using JavaFX. There is a veterinarian office that explores pattern matching, where you're creating records, sealed interfaces, storing data in an array list, and then doing some pattern matching, which is also some new stuff. So those are all things you could also do. This is the one we're doing, everything in a sandwich, upgrading software in JavaFX. And so this gives you a little overview, which I already went through. But if you click here, where it says click here, this is the directions for the project itself. So I've kind of gone through some of this. If you go to this text-based setup, you can add all 6 of the starter classes to your project. So you go to the starter classes. Each starter class is listed here, and you just copy it and you create a file called rewardsapps.java and you paste it in. And you would do that for each one of these starter code files. Just copy it and then paste it in. I was going to put it up in GitHub, but I think GitHub, for my understanding, is GitHub for many people is difficult because students don't have access to it. So this was my solution. If you have a better solution, love to hear it. But this was my, like, how can I get some code out to teachers to start using with their students? And this was it. So a little time consuming maybe to like just do the copy paste, but that would all work and you would paste it in. So this is the text-based version. I can return to, before I return to missions, I did a little description of what each class did. Students asked for that one. We did the pilot. So, and then you can return to the missions, and we have all of the missions listed out here. I have this open in Visual Studio Code. So let me drag this over into the view. So here we are. I've got all my classes here in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I just made a project and they're all in there. Reward app starter.java has my main in it. And I love Visual Studio Code because you can just click run main and it will run the main for you. And it's very text-based, like I said. Welcome to the program, and then you get some options. You can sign up for rewards, you can view rewards, or you can exit. So I would put my selection in here. I'm going to sign up for rewards. I'm not sure why it's not doing it. Maybe because I have too many of them going. Let me try again. Okay. Huh. Well, that was working earlier. I'll have to figure out why that's not working. But essentially, it will give a bunch of prompts. They'll enter a bunch of things, and then you can view your rewards or you can exit the program. So, all right, let's look at the next step. Then you would go to the JavaFX. There is some setup that has to happen, and I put a link here to setting that up. I did this in IntelliJ, which seemed to work a little bit better for us. One of the pieces of feedback was students wanted to be able to take what they changed in the prior program and bring it in. So there's some instructions around that. So they're not repeating the mission of creating records. And then we've got some missions down here. For the JavaFX starter code, same thing. I've given some information about what you'll find in each of the files. You have .java files. You have controllers. JavaFX has controllers, so some controller.java files. And then you have some fxml files. So there's lots of instructions here. There's also a need for text files. So we're backing up our database in this one where we're putting our customers into a customers.txt file to back up our data. Rewards will be in a rewards.txt. So there's some updates that have to happen there. And you need these logos here. So there's one there and one here. And then again, all of the files are in these little drop downs. You would just copy them and put them into a file with the appropriate name on it. And we'll bring that over. Okay, so this is all my files are here. In my resources is where I have my fxml files and my txt files and my logos. So they all go in this resources section, and then all my Java files go here. All right, so I'm in my Hello application. I'm going to run it. And it popped up over on my other screen. So let me bring it over. So here's what it looks like. I can click register. I can put some information in here. And my email address. That's not my email address. I should give you my real one, in case people are wondering. And then I submit and it will generate a customer ID for me. There's a little alignment issue here that you could have them fix. So congratulations, set up the account. This customer ID should be over here as a label. I was customer ID 6. Obviously, I've run this a few times. I could add many more. And then I can go to rewards and I can put 6 in as my customer ID. Now, my offers currently are expired, so that's why it says there's no rewards. But let me show you where those rewards are. So if I go to the rewards txt file, I have a cookie that expired uh, April 30th. So let me change that. It's very easy to change it. You can also add more rewards. And let's view rewards again. I might have to redo this since I changed it in the middle. Let me start again with it. Okay, and I think I can just grab my customer ID of 6, view my rewards, and there's my cookie offer because I changed my expiration date to May 30th instead of April 30th. So just be careful as you use this with students. You're going to want to update that. We struggled a while wondering why rewards weren't showing. It was because all the rewards had expired in the queue. So that's just a little hint from us. So some things that students will do with this, they can go through and add a lot of different features to it. Things about, think about all the things a reward app will do, like provide an offer on your birthday or provide, this doesn't have any passwords. Maybe you want to put passwords in. Maybe provide, some type of log of your order history. So all these things are things that you can maybe talk through with your class, and depending on the level of um, expertise and the level of time you have and involvement that your students want to have with it, you can, explore this out further. One thing that I do want to show you because I didn't realize how nice this is. Usually you go into FXML and this is what you see. And so this can be really overwhelming. Like it's like students have to learn a whole nother language. They don't. They can go in IntelliJ and they can do this scene builder. You have to have a plugin for this. It's very easy to get the plugin. So if that's not there, you can go into settings. Where is settings? Right here. And what you want installed is the Java FX one. The Java FX bundle has the scene builder in it. And so you just want to make sure that one's included. And if it's not, you can very easily find that and add that to your thing because scene builders are great. All of this stuff on the left are like classes and it helps you create the little objects that are on the screen. Like this is an image object. This is a button object. This is a container. This yellow box is a container. It's called an anchor pane. I have a rewards button. I have a label. Okay. These are all objects. So talk to your kids about that connection that each one of these things is an object. And what are the things that objects have? Well, they have properties, which would be their instance variables, really. And there's a whole bunch of properties on the right-hand side here that talk about the text and all sorts of stuff. In the property section, you might want to like I have this right here, click registration to sign up and rewards to see your reward available. Like that just is going to display on the screen. For a button, that's the text register is the text there. So I could change this to register now. And maybe it would show it. Oh, now I just have now. I guess I got rid of register. Let me go back. So I meant to do register now. So it changes the text right on there. Put it back to register. When you go to layout, there's things about where it is. I didn't really do a whole lot of exploring in the layout section. The other section that's super important is the code. So properties are like your instance variables, and then the code is going to be where you're going to be naming it. Just like all objects in Java have to have a name, you want to name your different objects in there. It's important and helpful if when you make a name that you include what type of thing this is. So I did registration button. I would do for the label, I would do, directions label. For this one, I would have done like logo image or whatever it is, because when you get over to the FXML side, it's really important for you to be able to remember what each thing is. You don't want to just have registration. So this is another good opportunity to have great conversations with kids about like naming conventions and making sure you have things that are readable. Okay. Then most things, like if it's a button, it's going to have an on action. So when you click on it, you need to set an action. So Um, this has an on action for a registration button clicked. And so that's the on action for that one. This one is the on rewards button clicked. And so that's how you're creating those different methods, which if you would. Now, right now they don't do anything. Your kids are going to have to write the method bodies, but at least it sets up the skeleton for that. Once I add everything in, this is an important thing you have to do. If you right click on the FXML, you can update the controller. So there is the FXML and then there's the controller for the FXML. I'm not going to update the controller because I didn't really do anything, but this and my Hello controller work together. So I had an on registration button clicked. I have an on rewards button clicked. I have an initialize um, method there that helps me set things up. And that's where, so you would get this header for it, and that would all be set when you do the update the FXML. And then you would have to, your students would have to add in the code. In this case, the code's already there, but I'm just saying, like, if they add additional elements, they would have to write the code for what those different things do. So those are all supplied for you. Registration controller is here. So what they do when they click the on registration, the rewards, resetting the text field so that every time you register somebody, it goes back to empty fields. Um, when we submit, what happens, and the initialize, which is going to read the input from the different arrays and initialize the arrays from the files. So that's what all three of these controllers have an FXML file associated with them that they're going to have to communicate with. The rest of what they're writing, like this is a record that they're writing. They can change the things about a customer. Maybe a customer has a password, they can add that functionality in. They would have to have a place for that to be entered in on the FXML screen, on the registration screen probably. So they would maybe add that as a field. They will think of all sorts of things to add to this project. Okay, let's go back and look at the second project that we have. So some of the missions that we have for project one in the text space, it's updated with records. It's not just records though. There's a couple other things like using a switch expression instead of an if statement, using a text block instead of the way that they do text blocks. So just to help expose them to some newer things. Rewards for specific customers. So right now the rewards apply to everybody. How do you change it so that there's a reward for specific customers? Birthday rewards, loyalty rewards, discounts. All of those things are things that they can maybe add into the text space. Again, we mentioned passwords, other security things that you could maybe do. Then switch over to JavaFX missions, modify the subscriber contact information. So what happens if somebody wants to change their email address or their physical address? How do we do that? And then make up your own modifications, update to make contact information required to enroll. So like right now, I can click register and have it be blank and it'll say, congratulations, you enrolled. So how do you make that information like required instead? So, it's got a lot of flexibility, a lot of versatility, a lot of different directions that you can take this base code through. Okay. This second project is one that I used to do using applets with my students. I did it with intro kids, I did it with AP kids. It kind of just depended year to year who I did it with. Essentially, what I would have students do is I would have them pull a picture. Some years it was a picture, some years they did everything from the ground up, and they would just draw a scene. So if I did this around Halloween time, it would be decorate a house. Decorate a house doesn't have to be your house. It could be a picture of your house, but it could be anybody's house for Halloween. We also did as a post AP, we did one that we're like getting it ready for summer, so where students drew flowers or beach blankets or beach balls or stuff like that. And they kind of decorated the house with these things. For Halloween, it was pumpkins and spider webs and things like that. This one is a winter scene. I emulated it in winter. Essentially, I took this house and I put a whole bunch of random snowflakes on it. They're random sized, and they're in random positions. And what this will do is it kind of reinforced for students the need for methods because you didn't want to individually draw each one of these snowflakes. Instead, you could make a snowflake method and use parameters. So it really helps them to understand like why parameters are helpful. Why would we even need parameters? And it was because they would make a pumpkin and they would want that pumpkin to kind of work a little bit more like a stamp and be able to stamp it across in different places and change the size of it and put it in a whole bunch of different places. And the only way to do that would be to have parameters to specify the location. So it's just a fun, engaging thing. You can do it in JavaFX now because applets are no longer. And so it doesn't have to be a winter scene. This one's called a winter scene, but you can change it to be whatever you need it to be for your students. So they're going to learn about file input because they have to input this picture. They're going to learn about the image view class, JavaFX drawing, abstraction through writing methods with parameters. So this is a great place where abstraction comes into play. Let me do a little bit of demoing for this project. All right, so this one's a little bit shorter and more straightforward. Again, I'll show you where you can get these files, but basically this is just an application. It has a draw snowflake method. This method has an XY, it has a size, and I've put them in I had to use groups to group together my my different lines. So I have a horizontal, vertical, and two diagonals, and I had to kind of group them together so that it would draw the picture all together. So that's what the group G is. And then in my starter, because you have a start versus a main when you do use JavaFX, I am pulling in my house picture, creating that image, and then I have my group G, and I go through and just keep, I drew 50 snowflakes in random spots and I sent them random position and a random size and the group. So it would just keep adding these to the group. And then when I drew the scene, I sent it the group and the size that I wanted that applet to be. How can you go from here is they would just use this code as a model, and then they can draw other things. Maybe they're drawing a snowman if it's winter. Like I said, for the beach, maybe they're drawing beach balls. Maybe they're drawing sunglasses, or maybe you're putting the sun in the corner. But you're gonna create all sorts of different methods, and it can be super creative for them what they want to create. So when I run this, so that's the picture that you saw in the PowerPoint. When I run it, that's gonna pop up for me. Where do you find the starter code for this? So going back to this list of projects, go back one more. Here we go. So we had the everything in the sandwich. Now here's the winter scene. Again, it could be a summer scene. It's summer. Let them pick what they're going to draw. And these were the things they were going to learn. You're going to click here for the full directions. And then this is the code. And they would just copy this code to move over into the IntelliJ. When you create an IntelliJ project, a JavaFX IntelliJ project, you will get automatically, you'll get these two files. You could rename them if you want. I just left them as hello application, hello controller. You definitely can rename them. But the hello controller is automatically given for you. And so you don't have to change anything, and you would just write all your code in the hello application. So whichever one works for you and for your students, or you can, like I said, do any of these other projects in here as well. So some of the things that I would do is I would have things like this that my kids could do where everybody's doing the same thing, or another idea would be to have these be things that were all optional for students. I would often have them do like a self-study, and they got to choose what they wanted to do. I would give them a list of things that were appropriate, and then they self-studied. And here in Georgia, students didn't have to attend class on days that they had an AP exam. So some kids were in my classroom for, 2 weeks, and some kids were in my classroom for 3 days after the exam, just kind of depended on whether or not they had other AP exams or not. And so they just kept a log and a journal, and they got credit based on the amount of time that was in the class. This is like a really, or it was for me, a very tough time, I think, to teach because and make the time meaningful. So hopefully these projects will help you to make the time very meaningful for your students. So thank you so much for attending. If you have questions, please reach out, and hopefully some of you will do this with your students and you'll find that they enjoyed it. So